Corporation.
Is that related to Demerco?
It's a fully owned subsidiary of Demerco Electronics.
During what period were you employed by them?
1979 through April 15th, 1980.
Do you know during what period Don Yu was employed by Demerco?
August 1, 79 through February 1st, 80.
Did you attend the January 81 Consumer Electronics Show in San Jose?
1981, yes.
Did you see Don at that show?
Yes.
Who were you representing at that time?
Taiwan Deco Companies.
Did you also represent Deco International Corporation?
Yes.
Where was that located?
California.
Where is its principal place of business?
San Jose.
When was it formed?
May or June 1980.
Did you have a position at the formation with Deco International?
What do you mean by position?
Did you have a job title?
Yes.
What was your job title?
Executive Vice President.
At the 81 Consumer Electronics Show, who did you understand Don Yu to be representing?
No foundation.
Answer the question.
U.S. Games.
What business was U.S. Games then involved in?
No foundation.
My understanding was electronic handheld games.
I believe, Mr. Wish, that I asked the witness if he met Don Yu in 1981 CES, if that's your objection as to foundation.
No.
Were you ever approached by U.S. Games concerning manufacture of handheld games?
Yes.
When?
Early 81.
By whom were you approached?
Mr. Don Yu.
At any time was a purchase order issued by U.S. Games to Taiwan Deco for the manufacture of handheld games?
Excuse me, counsel. I don't think you've defined Taiwan Deco, and accordingly the question could be ambiguous.
I'm sorry, when I use the term Taiwan Deco, I'm referring to either or both Taiwan Deco Electronics or Deco Taiwan Corporation.
Okay, would you repeat the question?
Was any purchase order issued by U.S. Games to Taiwan Deco for handheld games?
I believe so.
Were handheld games ever produced by U.S. Games by Taiwan Deco?
No.
Why?
There was no
Foundation.
line of credit being issued
Issued by whom?
by U.S. Games to Taiwan Deco.
Did you at some later time discuss production of video game cartridges for U.S. Games by Taiwan Deco?
Sometime later than that?
Yes.
Yes.
When did you discuss that with U.S. Games?
I think it was in summer 81.
With whom did you discuss it?
I'm sorry, because of my cold, I didn't hear that.
Summer of 81.
Summer of 81?
Yes.
With whom did you discuss it?
Mr. Don Yu.
What was the substance of that discussion?
Mr. Yu.
Object to the form of the question and also calling for a narrative answer.
You can answer the question.
Mr. Yu wants to find out whether we could, Taiwan Deco, technically could be capable of making video games and or are we interested in making video games?
What was your response?
For the proposed question, it was yes.
What occurred next?
What do you mean what occurred next?
Strike that. Did you take steps to enter into a relationship with U.S. Games for the production of video game cartridges?
That's ambiguous who you is supposed to be.
Taiwan Deco.
Can you define what's the relationship you mean?
Well, you said that you indicated to him that you were interested in Taiwan Deco producing games. Did you take any steps to move toward that?
Oh, yes.
Did you prepare a quotation?
When?
You may answer my question.
Yes.
When was a quotation prepared?
Sometime in September 81.
What was the unit price shown on the quotation?
Best evidence.
$1.83.
Do you have in your possession the quotation which shows the price of $1.83?
Do I have it now?
Yes.
I don't.
Tell him whatever the answer is.
I don't have one.
Have you given that quotation or a copy of it to your attorney?
Yes.
Counsel, could we have that produced?
If it hasn't been produced, then Mr. Wish has it or I have it. You'll get it.
Thank you. Would you look at Exhibit A to your affidavit?
Yeah.
Was the $1.83 quotation the same format as the quotation which is marked as Exhibit A to your affidavit?
Object to the form of the question. What do you mean by the same format?
You can respond.
Also, best evidence.
Yes.
Wait a second until he stops his objection.
Best evidence. It's asking for the contents of the writing. Move to strike that answer.
You can answer if you remember.
Yes.
Thank you. Can you tell me, looking at Exhibit A, what items are different on Exhibit A than on the $1.83 quotation which you prepared?
Best evidence again. We also object on that very ground that there is a document in existence which will speak for itself, especially when compared with Exhibit A to Exhibit 1 of this deposition.
Are you all through yet, counsel? Are you ready to make an objection? Are you going to make any I didn't want to interrupt you, but I figured you were going to.
Is this facetious?
I didn't want him to answer. Will you answer the question if you remember what it is, unless it's something you think will help the deposition at this point?
You're referring to an Exhibit A, I take it, to Mr. Chow's affidavit?
Yes,
That's what we're referring to.
There's a number in the lower right-hand corner, M00003.
yes,
And the next is the same sequence with the last digit 4.
right.
The numbers then skip to 17 for Exhibit B. Could you explain to me the numbering sequence for exhibits?
Can we go off the record?
With respect to Mr. Deserek's question concerning the phantom document that says $1.83, I've asked counsel for the witness to provide us all with a copy of that document should it be discovered. I understand counsel has indicated he will take that under advisement with Mr. Martin.
That's what I said, but I did not indicate that I was going to produce a phantom document, counsel.
Nor, I think, did he indicate that he would take whether he was going to produce it if it was discovered under advisement. I think what he said was if the document was discovered, he would produce it to all counsel when it was discovered.
Excellent. I would accept that with pleasure and no reservations.
Now, you can answer my question if you remember what it was.
I think I do. To the best of my recollection, the only difference between the two pieces of quotation was the price.
Would you please turn to Exhibit B to the deposition? Before you turn to Exhibit B, with regard to Exhibit A,
You say Exhibit B to the deposition?
let me start over again, turning again to Exhibit A to your affidavit. When was Exhibit A? That is with the $2.33 price on it prepared.
I think it's late December of 81 or early January 82.
Turning to Exhibit B, did you receive Exhibit B? That letter in response to the $1.83 quotation?
Yes.
Objection, leading.
When did you receive it?
On or about the same day the letter is dated.
Was it mailed to you or hand-delivered to you?
Hand delivered to me
By whom?
by Mr. Don Yu.
Subsequent to the letter of October 1st, which is Exhibit B, was a purchase order issued by U.S. Games?
Yes.
Is the purchase order that was issued the purchase order, which is attached as Exhibit C to your affidavit?
Yes.
When was that purchase order issued?
Object for the lack of foundation and lack of competency. It's really outside of the competence of this witness to state when it was issued. He could probably state when he received it if he recalls.
I'll join the objection.
When did you receive it?
I think it's around a couple of days after this purchase order is dated.
What date is on the purchase order?
November 4, 1981,
Where did you receive it?
at California.
Was it hand-delivered to you or mailed?
Hand delivered.
By whom was it delivered to you?
Mr. Don Yu.
In preparing the quotation at $1.83, how was the price, the unit price of $1.83 arrived at?
By whom?
By you, strike that, who at Taiwan Deco prepared the quotation which had the $1.83 price on it?
No foundation.
I did.
I'll withdraw the objection.
Did you arrive at the price of $1.83?
Yes.
How did you arrive at that price?
Based on a cost analysis, the Taiwan Deco engineering people did based on the compatible cartridges that we pick up, namely from Activision and Atari, used their cartridges as a base. We made cost analysis, and from there we arrived at the $1.83 price.
Is the cost analysis that you performed attached as Exhibit D to your affidavit?
Yes,
Who did the cost analysis summary? Who prepared Exhibit D?
this could have been done by a collective effort.
That's non-responsive, move to strike.
You can answer the question.
Mr. Don Yu and Lawrence Coe.
Will you read the question and answer back? I'll move to strike on the grounds that the answer reflects that it's based on speculation.
Did you have any involvement in preparing the cost analysis summary?
Yes.
What part did you play in preparing it?
I provided them with a sample that I acquired in the States.
Provided whom?
Provided to Don Yu.
Did you discuss?
All right. Okay, tell me more.
I am for the defense, Mr. Davila, D-A-V-I-L-A.
I am the court.
I am the witness.
I am plaintiff's attorney, Mr. Bayer, B-A-Y-E-R. And let's start at the top with the court.
People versus David Rambo.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Rambo is present in custody. Edward Davila, the Public Defender's Office, on his behalf, We are ready to proceed.
Representing the people of the state for the DA's office of Santa Clara County, Lance Bayer. We are also ready to proceed at this time.
You may proceed, counsel.
Your Honor, at this time, we would call Officer Rozak to the stand. Your Honor, at this time, it appears that based on the evidence, it would be more appropriate that the other officer be called first for the case to be more easily followed, and I would ask to change my request and ask that Officer Maudlin be called.
All right, step down, officer.
Excuse me, Your Honor. I would then move at this point to exclude witnesses in this matter, Your Honor.
All right, how many witnesses do you have?
2, Your Honor, would ask that Officer Rozak be permitted to remain and be designated as the investigating officer in this case.
All right, be designated the investigating officer.
Officer, could you state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Dick G. Maudlin, M-O-D-L-I-N.
Where do you work?
I'm a police officer for the city of San Jose.
Were you on duty as a police officer for the city of San Jose on the 27th of January of this year?
Yes, sir, I was.
At approximately 20 minutes to 11 on that evening?
Yes, sir.
Did anything unusual happen that caught your attention at that time?
Yes, sir, it did.
What was that?
I was in my patrol vehicle driving westbound on Umbarger, and I observed a vehicle in front of me also driving westbound, but that vehicle was in the eastbound lane of Umbarger. And I observed the vehicle driving in the eastbound lane for approximately 50 feet. He then went over the lane for approximately 50 more feet. As I observed him, he put his left turn signal on, and this is about 200 feet east of Monterey Highway at the intersection of Umbarger Road and 8th Street. Put his left turn signal on as if he was turning onto 8th, but proceeded past the intersection driving at a very slow rate. He then put his right turn signal on and pulled over to the curb of Umbarger.
What did you do when you saw the car pull over to the right curb?
When he pulled over to the right curb, I pulled over behind him
For what purpose?
to investigate as to why he was driving that way in the erratic manner that he was driving in.
Based on your experience as a police officer, did you have any suspicions at that point?
My suspicions would be that he was possibly driving under the influence of alcohol or some drug.
What happened when you stopped your car at that location?
If I may refer to my report here.
Go ahead.
Did you take certain notes at about the time of this incident?
Yes, I did.
To the best of your recollection, were they accurate at the time you took them?
Yes, sir.
And you need them at this point to refresh your recollection?
Yes, sir, I do.
What was the first thing you did? And you can refer to your reports or testify from personal memory as soon as you stopped behind that car.
Okay, the first thing I did was advise radio that I was making a car stop, and as to my location and the license number of the vehicle, as I got out of my vehicle and began to approach the vehicle, the driver of that vehicle got out, and
Did you observe anything about him at that point?
I observed him when he got out of the car. I noticed his movements were very, very slow and very deliberate.
Did you notice anything else about him that was unusual?
I began talking to the subject, asking him his name and asking for his driver's license, and he seemed very confused, staring at me very blankly, and before trying to answer my questions, his eyes would just stare rather than actually focusing on me or anything else.
Did you notice anything else unusual about him?
I noticed his pupils seemed to be normal in size.
Did you notice anything else about his eyes?
Just the staring that he gave was almost like a catonic state.
At that point, what did you decide to do?
At that point, I tested the individual for nystagmus to see if he was possibly under the influence of PCP.
Is that nystagmus test part of your training as a police officer?
Yes, sir, it is.
How do you conduct that nystagmus test?
I explained to the individual what I'm going to do, and then I hold my finger approximately 12 inches in front of his nose, and then move my finger off to the side and have him follow my finger with his eyes without turning his head. And then I do the same thing for the vertical test, holding my finger 12 inches in front of his nose and move my finger up and down and have him follow it with his eyes without moving his head.
Did you notice anything unusual happen when you conducted those tests on him?
Yes, he had both horizontally and vertically the test done.
I trust at that point you got a good look at the individual.
Yes, sir, I did.
Do you recognize whether or not that individual is present here in court today?
Yes, sir, he is.
Could you please describe for the record where that person is sitting and what that person is wearing?
He's sitting to my far right, wearing blue jeans and a blue Levi jacket.
Indicating the defendant for the record. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer, what did you do after you conducted the test for nystagmus?
I asked the subject if he had been smoking PCP. He said yes, he had.
Excuse me, I object to that answer, Your Honor. Move to strike it. I don't believe there has been any foundation of any Miranda rights that have been given. I would submit to the court that is an incriminating question.
Let me have an opportunity, if I may, to ask some preliminary questions and ask that the objection be given to a motion to strike.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Officer, prior to asking any questions, was the individual under arrest?
No, sir, he was not at this time.
Did you read any constitutional rights at that point?
No, sir, I did not.
Why didn't you read the constitutional rights to the individual?
The individual was not under arrest at this time, and I was still trying to determine whether or not he was under the influence of PCP or alcohol.
I would submit the issue at this point and ask the court to rule regarding the statements.
Counsel?
Would the court wish me to argue now or save that for closing arguments?
Well, no. Let's decide whether or not the statements were to go in at this point.
I would submit that any answer that was given in the situation the officer has testified to would be submission to authority at that particular point in time, and I believe People versus Layton and People versus Abbott stand for the same proposition.
Counsel?
Your Honor, my understanding of this situation from what the officer said is there is not an interrogation as required under the Miranda cases, and my understanding of the law as it exists since the constitutional changes were made by the voters would be